Yeah, Roofman is one of those American films that starts off with based on a true story. So you don't know how
It actually says this is a true story.
this is a true story.
Yeah.
So it basically, the Roofman is uh, I could describe him as a burglar who became notorious in a sort of particular area in America where he would enter premises by digging a hole in the roof, going inside, and either robbing the safe or holding up the manager to get them to open the safe.
Mm.
But he was his trademark was basically that fact that he was polite, and he would lock members of staff in like the freezer, but he'd make sure they had their coats on. And when someone didn't have a coat, he'd give them a coat. And he would like say he'd apologize and say that he would like be quite polite to me. He wouldn't be overly aggressive,
Mm.
but he became notorious in this one particular area for this. That was his MO, was going through the roof. And at the beginning of the film, you see him, you hear a bit of backstory. He's a man with a family. He was an ex-military who basically just could not buy the things he wanted to buy to make his what he thought would make his life happier and make his children's lives happier. So he turned to the life of crime. He was arrested, imprisoned to some what in sort of British eyes would be like ridiculous terms of imprisonment, 45 years in jail for what we would call false imprisonment, but they said it was kidnapping and reckless endangerment and robbery and things.
Well,
We
yeah,
wouldn't.
yeah. I think there's a thing about that where they say that they think he has robbed 40. He's robbed 45 McDonald's. They think he's
Yeah,
robbed 45 McDonald's, but they can only prove that he's robbed one, and he's not confessing to. So because of that, because they want to prosecute him for the 44, but they cannot prove it, so they decide that every single person that he locked in the freezer was a case of kidnapping, and he got 15 years for each one of them.
yeah. So he ended up with 45 years in jail, and then our main story, sort of kicks off when he manages to devise a way of escaping from his prison,
Yes.
and he goes back into town. He hides out in a Toys R Us, and as part of his sort of like lying low, because they say, don't try to run for it because they will catch you. So you
Yeah.
basically have to disappear. So lie low, disappear, be inconspicuous as possible. So he lies low in a Toys R Us store. He sort of fashions himself like a little place to stay, to sleep.
Yeah.
And he picks up some like child monitors, so he's got cameras all around. And he starts to watch the members of staff. And through this sort of like observation it starts off with, he actually gets to know one of the members of staff. They're not who doesn't know who he is, and then they form this relationship, and then the story goes on from there.
Yes.
So, yeah, this is a true story. So he's yeah plays this almost like a likable guy who sort of like has gone wrong somehow, rather than being a wrong un who's just is like was born to be sort of in jail. And all these factors. But this, what I thought was quite telling to me, was like the key to his sort of like characterization. He's described as being very bright, almost genius, but an idiot. And you think you
It's
get
like
the
he's got
feeling
a
that that
genius
is,
level IQ, but he's an idiot.
yeah. So you get the feeling that some of the choices he makes, let's just say, are not the wisest choices, and
Yeah.
that when he engages on sort of some activity, you're thinking, what are you doing? why would you why would you do that? That one thing. Or there's one sort of thing where he's trying to cover his footprints at one point, and they said, have you had any contact with anyone? And it was like, yes,
Yes.
I have been to this place. And it's like, instead of any sort of would it be a spoiler because it's towards the end of the film tells him what he does?
It is a bit of a spoiler. It is a bit of
I
a
won't say,
spoiler.
but he
But
goes
anyway,
completely. It's like your
the way
reaction is like, what?
yeah, his way of covering his tracks. While it was happening, I was like, surely there's a simpler way.
Yeah,
I was like, surely there's a simpler way that
yeah.
to do this. But
And yeah, he chooses like okay, there's like a reasonable response, and then there's like the crazy town response, and he goes to crazy town basically.
there's a response. I'm like, this is only going to make things worse for you, and I think that's the key to the character because he's played by Channing Tatum. Played by Channing Tatum. It's called Jeff Manchester. You can actually look him up and see what the real Jeff Manchester got up to, and I think the film is pretty. The broad strokes, the film sticks to the actual facts of what happened, and it's. Yeah, and there's bits where he just goes and you're like, oh, dude, that's just going to make things worse for you. That is just
Yeah,
going to, you're like, please don't do that. It's going to make things
yeah,
worse for you. Because Channing Tatum plays him as extremely charming, and it's so like, the way Channing Tatum plays him, you can understand why people keep sort of like, you know, just warm to him. Why people warm to him and all that. Because even though he's hiding out in the Toys R Us, he still manages to sort of like you'll be well. He doesn't
Yeah.
spend all his time in.
He almost like pretends to have he almost has like a double life, doesn't he? During
He
this
does,
sort
yeah.
of period of time, this
Yeah,
sort of
because he does leave
people
the
who meet
Toys
him
R
have
Us.
got no idea.
He does interact with people who have no idea who he is, even though his face was plastered all over the news. After a while, it sort of like dies and nobody really knows who he is. So he ends up, and I think a big crux of the film ends up with him having a relationship with the Kirsten Dunst character, who's called Lee, and with her and her two daughters, and what actually goes on and all that. And it's one of these films, but as you're watching it, you know. I mean, I'm not sure about you, Sharon, but I just got this. It was kind of like a sense of, I don't know, cozy dread, so to
Yeah,
say, that you're like, this is sweet, this is really cute, but it's not going
this
to
is
end
not going to
well.
end well.
It is
Not
it
going
is
to end
not
well.
going to end well. There is like, yeah, there's bits where it, because if it wasn't a true story, you're like, oh, maybe this could be like, the redemption that this character's going to find. This character's going to find something. This other character, blah blah, and maybe they're going to go into the sunset together. But you're like, that's not going to happen.
That's not
That's
going to happen. And
that's
then
like,
some of the things he does, you're thinking they're going to track this activity,
yes,
or they're
yes,
going to notice this sort of thing going on. And it's
yes,
just like you're just being too blatant.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
almost like having you're a living shoplifter at one
Well,
point, and I was just thinking they're going to know that all this stuff is just like walking off the shelf, surely.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's things. There's a bit in the film where he poses for a picture, and I'm like, what? I'm like, oh.
Yeah,
this
so
is
yeah,
all this is
highly
all a matter
intelligent,
of.
a thoughtful guy, but an idiot.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, this is all a matter of record. This is all a matter of record.
Yeah.
So it's like, but what did you think about it, Sharon?
Yeah, I thought that again they played it sympathetically, didn't he? He did play it with that sort of degree of charm, but you want to just clip him around the ear.
Yeah,
And again, sometimes you feel that the people he took in, but he took in all these people really think he actually deceived a lot of people.
yeah,
But
he
he was
did. Yeah,
almost like so likable that they're almost like, you know what, he's actually okay, it's like a good guy. So I thought he played it very sympathetically, that he
yeah,
conveyed that whole sense of, he was deceiving these people, but it wasn't any with any real malicious intent.
yeah,
We feel that yeah, and so because yeah, so I thought he was played well. I think Kirsten Dunst is just class anyway.
yeah.
Whatever she does, she sort of elevates anything she's in, I think. Especially if she's called Lee in it. I think that just helps. Because she was Lee in the Civil War, wasn't she?
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
Her character name. And I thought, yeah, I think she was good. And some of the supporting actors, Ben Mendelsohn was in as the local pastor. I think
But
some of these sort of subsidiary characters, they just elevated it. So I think
yeah, it's
what
like,
could be like another true story, I thought they
yeah,
actually elevated it to making it much more entertaining.
yeah. Ben Mendelsohn in As You've Never Seen Him Before. Ben Mendelsohn, because every time you see well, I think it's Ben Mendelsohn. I equate Ben Mendelsohn with quiet menace. Like the guy shows up and you kind of like going, "Oh, don't cross him."
Uh-oh.
And I
Yeah.
like Ben Mendelsohn in this film. It's kind of, I'm like, you keep waiting for that character to do a Ben Mendelsohn thing, and he
Yeah.
just doesn't. And you're like, really? Is that it? Because it's a small role compared to what Ben Mendelsohn is, because you have him and Uzo Aduba, and I think this is also because I think this is something that Sharon and I have some skin in this game. I think this is also one of the most, I won't even say sympathetic. I'll say it's one of the most level-headed representations of Christians and church life that I
Yeah.
think I've seen on screen,
Yeah.
because I'm watching it going, yeah, I recognize that. Yep, totally recognize. Yep, yes,
Yeah.
that is
Some
what
of
would happen at a
the
singles lunch. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, some of the yes, and then yeah, yeah, and some of the services. Yeah, you think even though they're
Oh, the
obviously at a
services. Oh
time,
my word.
but some of them you think, yeah, that's not my particular tradition, but I have been to services where it's like that, and so
Yeah,
I'm a bit like I recognize
yeah, I
this.
recognize
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
I will
and
ready
some
myself because I will therefore too.
yeah. So yeah, so I thought yeah, again it wasn't. Though my part of me was thinking. My critical I put my critical head in now because I did enjoy it. But one of my critical things was more about if it's a true story. I was thinking actually some of the behaviours of the family. I was thinking you are a professed Christian, but Some of that sort of, let's say the speed in which the relationship developed, I was a bit like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
Not
it's yeah.
necessarily a timeline I would put, put in expect for that sort of relationship.
But yeah, I have come to conclusion that when you say Christian in America, you're
Yeah,
talking
it
about
doesn't mean the same thing.
a whole different level of parameters than you do in some of and I think whenever you go around the world and you say Christian in different places, it means different things to different people.
Yeah,
So
I agree, Joey.
so the kind of things that I think, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. They might not see anything wrong with it, but yeah, but I do understand what you mean. I do understand what you mean. I've
No, so I thought, on the whole, I enjoyed it. I thought it was entertaining. For me, it's still a three-star film, but I think it's the top end because it was entertaining.
yeah
Everyone did their job really well, but
yeah
I think you are almost slightly limited in terms of, progression and development and sort of drama and tension in a film, because of the type of film it is going to be based on a true story. So
Yeah.
I tend to find that limits the sort of, I don't know, you tend to
the drama.
the drama of it, yeah, that
Yeah
sort of the surprises and stuff. So I
yeah
always
yeah.
think it sort of limits the scope of what you're doing. So, but I still thought it was entertaining, and so I would certainly give it a strong three. Yeah, certainly worth going to see.
Yeah,
But I
and
don't think you could give it a four. Really.
I would agree with you almost entirely because I think it just about tips into a four, but low four. So like, yeah, it's kind of like it's in that bracket. It's in that low
Yeah.
three. It's in the high three, low four sort of thing. Because I do think that the performances are great. I think that they're all good, and I feel like Lakeith Stanfield because this film I think is directed by Derek
Oh,
Cian
Peter
France.
Dinklage. I thought
Peter
Peter
Dinklage,
Dinklage.
yeah, and you
Yeah.
have it has a great cast, and a lot of them are in not that big roles. So you have Peter Dinklage
Yeah.
as the absolute horrible boss of the Toys R Us. You have Lakeith Stanfield, who is he's kind of like the audience surrogate in the film because he says things to Jeff Manchester that the audience is thinking is like, yeah, you're dumb. Like,
And
like
Juno Temple with a tiny,
Juno Temple,
tiny little
Juno Temple in a
little
tiny
role.
role. I mean, like when she shows up, I'm like, that's Juno Temple.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I was like, that's Juno Temple, and you're like, but the way I see this film going, she's not going to have much to do in this film. And sure enough, she doesn't, but she's in the film. And I think people just want to work with the director, Derek Cian France. I think that's the only way I can think about it, is that they just want to work with him because there's people in tiny, tiny blink and you miss it roles. All right, cool. And so that is, I'll say 3.5 stars for Roofman.